Oh, welcome back to Marky Mark's Wood Shop. Marky Mark, and this is the wood shop. So we're just starting a project which is going to be a reloading bench. And the inspiration for that is a secretary that I found. It's a mission style secretary, but it's not going to be like this. It's just the inspiration. I've drawn a sketch of like some overall dimensions so you can see the shape, and I cut out the sides yesterday. Today we'll be cutting out the back and a little bottom connector type of shelf, so that way we'll be able to probably actually glue this up, and then we can start using some boards for the rest of it. This is plywood, birch plywood, used for the sides and the top, sides and the back, and I figured I'd use leftover piece for the bottom shelf. So let's get started. Okay, this is a piece of 1/2-inch birch plywood that's going to be used for the back of the bench. The sides I used 3/4 inch. So I've measured it out. I've put tape down where I'm going to cut to help keep the splintering to a minimal. And I'm going to use a circular saw since I don't have a panel saw. And you'll note that I've got a plywood blade in it. Very fine tooth. And that'll give a clean cut and also cut down on the splinters. And I'll get partially through it, and then I'll support this end. Since it's kind of big and it's only me, it would be better if somebody were holding it to support it, but you can't have everything. So let's carve it up. Now to that supporting board. There we go. And we'll continue our cut. Awesome. Now we'll do the same thing for the side because I only need 43 inches. Okay, we're ready to do the cut. Oh, I didn't tell you before, but at the other end of the board I put a clamp on there just to hold it so it doesn't move on me. And let's see if I can take the tape off and show you what's going on here with the cut. Most of your plywoods have a nasty habit of splintering, and depending on what kind of wood it is, like Llewellyn, leaves splinters very easily. But you can see here we have a very nice edge. Not that that's going to be visible, but if it were, it would be very clean. So that's the this will be the back of the workbench. And the only thing left to cut out is going to be the little bottom shelf. That'll serve a couple of purposes. One, obviously storage, and another will be for stability down at the bottom to, keep the legs from spreading. So let me do some measuring and set that up, and we'll get right back. Okay, we basically got the same operation here. I've measured out where I want to cut, put tape down where I'm going to cut, and it doesn't show up on the camera, but I can see the cut line through the tape. So, more cutting. Let's have at it. Alrighty, there's our bottom support piece all cut out. So the next thing we'll need to do is route a groove in the sides to accept this. I've already done that for the back piece. And then we can actually glue these puppies up. Some of the tools I'm using for my measurement and layout. One is a thickness gauge, very, very handy, made by Gauge It. And you can see the graduations. It goes down to 30 seconds, and you can interpolate down to 1/28. This is a really, really handy gadget. I use it a lot. And another one is by Incra. It's a ruler. I've got a supply of their rulers. You can see holes in it. Those holes are every 32nd of an inch, and I've got a mechanical pencil that's a 1/2 millimeter. So it's about as small as you can get for a pencil to mark lines. And that too is extremely accurate. All of Incra's stuff is extremely accurate, top of the line stuff. So I've got the router set up. I've adjusted the depth a little bit so I only go through 2 of the 5 plies. And I've got a edge clamp down. I'm going to have to make several passes because I've only got a bit in there that's only a 1/2 inch, and we're cutting a 3/4 inch dado. So I could do this on the saw, but the boards are kind of long for my saw, and I already had the router set up. So let's have at it. Just checking to make sure everything's straight, nothing's moved. You noticed I stopped and went in. That'll prevent tear out. So now what we have to do is move the edge down just a little bit so we can complete our cut. I've got a square at one end so I can get the edge clamp square. Ready to blow up the carcass, and first thing we have to do is put the bottom piece down, which of course is buried in the back. So we have 4 pieces basically we're going to glue up, and something else I want to do is set wood down over top of these bars so it doesn't mar the finish of our plywood, which it will do. So let me go grab a couple of skinny pieces out here real quick. That's all we need, just something to keep it from getting marred. And that'll be just fine. So, our first piece going down. This is the back of the unit, and I want this to be the inside, mainly because it's the kind of a slight warp in the board. So the next thing we're going to need is the sides and then call boards for that. My big square here, courtesy of Merritt Green.
May he rest in peace.
May he rest in peace. So you can kind of see this, how it's going together. And what we're doing now is just fitting it first. Make sure we don't have any adjustments. Cutting, for instance, this may be too long. Or not. Just saying, it could be a possibility. But, of course, it's not. However, this side looks a little tight. So what I can do there is quickly just kind of take a rasp and make it chamfered on one edge, the bottom edge. And we'll see how that fits. It's still a little tight. Let me turn it around. Maybe it'll like the other side better. Yep. This one's still a little tight. This dado's probably just a hair small, although we did test fit it. We just didn't use this particular board. So I'll just have to take a little bit more off with the rasp. Doing metal, which is pretty much one way, you would just go forward. But this rasp is something called a shore form. It's not a rasp per se. It's more like sandpaper, so I can go in any direction. Most rasps are one way, and it's usually in a forward direction. Okay, that's tight, but it'll fit. I can tap it in. And actually, I'm going to need to do that for test fitting. I'm going to make sure that the this piece isn't too long. Be good. Yep. So we can proceed with the glue up. So what I'll have to do is take it apart and apply glue. Now I'm adjusting these clamps. I added some call boards so we don't damage the project material. And once I get everything adjusted, I'll take the boards off and start applying glue. And we'll be ready. So I'm just about done adjusting the clamps, just kind of getting them close to where I want them. The clamps only have a couple inches of adjustment. So in this case right here, I'm going to use all that adjustment on just taking up the gap, and then I won't have any room left to squeeze it. So we're starting to glue up. And this rabbet will give us twice the surface area, since we're gluing two sides together of the joint. Positive stop at one end, so there's no guesswork and the up and down dimension. And the same thing to the other side. Get some glue on it. Tight bond glue, which is kind of a standard in woodworking. Get it by the gallon. Okay, very good. Now, I'll get the bottom piece in, and then we can clamp it up. Some glue in the dado, both of the corners, that way it'll get all three sides of it. Okay, get the bottom piece in here and tap it back in. Okay, find my hammer. Aha! Woodworking is nothing but a series of fixing boo-boos. This dado I cut all the way across. Had I been thinking, I should have stopped. So now I'll have to come back and fill it in. And you'll see what I'll do later. I already have a plan. All of the plywood, the carcass, and some other areas are going to be trimmed out with alder, and I'll fill that in with alder, and it'll come across to cover the plywood, so it'll look nice and actually cure a couple problems with one stone. So let's tighten up our clamps. Snug them up because I want to get clamps going vertically as well. And then I need to tighten them all up in unison. This clamp has a different amount of strength, and even a given clamp style will have different strengths. Pipe clamps, which I just used on the bottom, are very, very strong. These F clamps are also very strong. You can get them weak or very strong. It just depends on how sturdy they're made. These particular ones are kind of medium duty. I'm not really after strength in this case. Well, it's not like I need a lot of strength for this particular operation. They're just setting in dados. They just need to be snug while the glue is setting up. If I had a glue up of many boards like the barn doors I was doing, I need a lot of strength to pull all those huge boards together. Matter of fact, when I did the barn doors, I broke a couple of pipe clamps because they just simply weren't strong enough. But that's all I had. The carcass has been glued, clamped, and all we have to do is let it cook until tomorrow. I usually just let them sit overnight. The glue's kind of workable in 4 to 6 hours or so, but I like to leave it sit a day. That way it's cured nicely. And then we can unclamp it, set it upright, and put the shop back together. So, until that happens, make sure you subscribe to see what's going to happen with this as it gets built. Because there's a lot that's going to be done. This is just the basic carcass yet. Leave a comment, hit the like button. Some of the things we'll be doing to this is, aside from using alder for a lot of the trim, there'll be some shelving up here with some compartments, 4 doors that'll kind of open up like what they call the folding doors, 2 folding doors. And of course in the secretary you've got a board that basically folds down. That'll be the work surface, so that'll get made. And I'm thinking of using hickory for that. I'll probably trim it out with the alder. And a few drawers underneath for various accoutrements. So there's a lot to be done. A lot of fun ahead. So thanks for watching and stay tuned.